Yeah.
Is there anything that this film touches on that you really don't want to talk about, that's upsetting to you, or that you're worried about? Just to cover that?
Not today. Yeah.
Okay.
This is where you're just like, I hate Helen
Thank
Mirren.
you.
Yeah.
Well, that would be fine because she's not in the film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you say Helen Mirren?
Lucky me.
Yeah, I did say Helen Mirren. That is not who it is it? Yeah.
To be fair, I'd love Helen Mirren in this. As like a counter to Meryl Streep's character, that'd be great.
Oh, a nice sort of grandma Helen Mirren that keeps Andy going.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cute.
Oh,
Right, Dan, whenever you're ready.
Cool.
You've
Hello?
not put your on-air... Sorry. You've not put your on-air light on.
No, it's because it doesn't do anything. Like, it just goes blurry.
no, it's great. You can't read it.
Yeah, I'll
It's
leave it on.
incredible.
It
But
needs
what
it.
if that stranger comes into your house?
Oh, yeah, then
He
they'll
will,
know.
he will know to be quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, right. Hello, and welcome to Hey, I Loved That Movie, the podcast where we rewatch the films we loved when we were younger to see if they still hold up. I'm Dan,
I'm Michael.
And I'm Helena.
and for this episode we have a very special guest joining us this week. It's Molly, aka Strange Capers from TikTok.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here.
Hey, welcome.
Hi, thanks for joining us.
So much for coming on.
Thank you. Which movie have you brought to us today, Molly?
You guys have been so kind to entertain the movie that I've brought today, which is The Devil Wears Prada.
Oh, I love this film so much.
The intro music.
Yeah, the intro music. Yeah.
That's fine.
I was trying to think what song is it, but it's "Hey, she's a beautiful world, it's a beautiful world."
It's early 2000s indie pop. It's
Yeah.
lovely.
And I hadn't heard that song in a long time, but I knew every word.
Yeah.
Yeah, it lives in the back of your head. It's not going anywhere.
It's never left.
Thank you so much for picking this film.
Yeah, we've been wanting to do this one for a while.
I was really pleasantly surprised that you guys wanted to do this film because I thought, I think, I wonder if the movies that are nostalgic for me are from a different time and place. And I'm excited to talk about this because it was such a cultural phenomenon. And also, I think has some stuff in it that does not hold up at all.
No.
Yeah, it was a real roller coaster of oohs and ahs, sort of in equal measure. So what is your I guess nostalgia, your emotional connection to this film? Because it's 2006, is it? Yeah, 2006, which makes it
Too old. Don't mention
no,
it.
we don't actually know. Not this episode. We're not going into the actual age.
I'll out myself. I was in college or university when this movie came out, and I was studying theater, and I, so desperately wanted to live in New York City and be a part of,
I see.
the New York City cultural scene. I was just so blown away at the time by, to be honest, the clothes. The clothes are unbelievable. I mean, they look a little silly now, but still in a very beautiful way. It's clearly like a very expensively costumed movie.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it is Anne Hathaway, which does a lot of the heavy lifting for the outfits.
Yes.
She is gorgeous just throughout.
It's funny
but yeah,
how the
I
movie
was
tries to portray her as like not at the beginning. And
yes.
it's like,
She's frumpy. It was like, I'm not buying that. She's still
Halle
beautiful.
Berry on her hands.
yeah,
she is.
Catwoman, where it's like, no, it's still Halle.
The film is trying desperately to tell you this is not an attractive person, and you're like, is it?
Ooh, she doesn't like fashion.
Allegedly, she spent time throughout the filming of the movie losing weight. I mean, that's such a huge plot point in the movie is that she's allegedly overweight at a US size 6.
Which is a 10 for England, just about.
Is that right?
Yeah, I looked it up because I figured it was going to come out. Yeah, and for boys, that's a small to medium.
Okay,
Sure.
When I rewatched it, something else I was really struck by is how much of this movie I ended up actually living. I ended up living in New York City. I worked as an assistant in a lot of different roles. I did a lot of work as an assistant in Wall Street and had various hedge funds.
Wow.
And so there there's just a lot of it is just so true. It is so terrifying to work for those kinds of bosses. Those kinds of bosses are everywhere. Like the frenzy of meeting crazy demands. Like I remember going into an office of a guy. I was working there for the one day, and the guy called me in his office and was like, "I need to be in Paris tomorrow. I need this. And you just sort of are like, I'm going to throw myself out this window. I don't know how to do this."
Oh wow, proper Wall Street.
I guess their name carries the power to be able to do it.
Yeah. Especially the hedge funds.
Yeah, this whole thing of her job being so in demand that there's 100 girls that would take her place, and that there's absolutely no employment stability for her at all. Is really intense. But I was wondering, because obviously you're American. I know you're not from New York, but you did live in New York for a long time. Yeah. How does it feel like it captures the city side of it?
It certainly captures what I would call, the Midtown Manhattan hustle and bustle. Like what you're seeing is not where people live in New York City. I mean, 8 million people plus live in New York City, but not in. Something that really struck me is that film largely takes place in the fashion district, which is kind of dumpy. Like, I mean, 100 years ago, it's where all of the, fabric houses were. And now it's where it's shot is not where these high fashion offices are. Like Vogue is in the New World Trade Center downtown. It's sort of not, the movie is making nostalgia of a place that doesn't actually exist anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we get that a lot with, tends to be a lot of time films, like, especially if there's bits that's supposed to be in different museums or something in England, I find that they'll have a completely different outside compared to what is inside of that museum, because some of them look really nice and some of them are just big squares. So...
Yeah.
Totally. I had one job in working as an assistant in a building in New York City that's on 57th Street that coincidentally is the building that has Chanel's New York offices in it.
Ooh.
And I do remember seeing the women that work there, getting on the elevator, and they do look like that. They look like those girls that were in the movie in the Runway office, Giselle Bundchen and all that,
Is Runway a real magazine, or is it made up for the film? I couldn't remember. And I could have looked it up, but chose not to.
It's all modeled on Vogue magazine.
Oh, yeah.
And Meryl Streep's character is modeled after Anna Wintour.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
This film is based on a book about in air quotes, about Vogue.
Yeah.
One of Anna Wintour's ex-assistants wrote it, and it was a sort of not official tell-all about what it was like to work for Anna Wintour. She has come out and said that, Anna Wintour has said, none of it's real, it's all over the top and lies and all that stuff, and everyone's kind of too afraid to correct her.
If you say so!
She is a wonderfully incredibly powerful person.
Quite brave of the assistant then, well, ex-assistant.
Oh, yeah.
In this rewatch, I was researching just kind of like the history of the making of the movie, and apparently the movie makers had a lot of trouble getting people in the fashion industry to cooperate with the movie because they were so scared of Anna Wintour's, that she would retaliate against them.
Yeah. That's so funny that she's just reinforcing all these stereotypes about her even in the production of the movie that's allegedly not even about her.
Yeah. And apparently the movie is, listening to someone talk about it, the movie is a lot friendlier to the Anna Wintour character than the book is. Like, the book is apparently really horrible, and it's not about, so the film is about how the assistant becomes a sort of, she admires the Anna Wintour character by the end. The book is not that. It is the opposite, where she hates her and it's why she left. So yeah, even with the film being nice to her, they're like, we don't want to touch it with a stick, please.
That's fascinating, because there's a lot, the fashion in it is, I really enjoyed that aspect watching it this time. I was expecting far more 2000s yikes than you see. There's some hats. There's some questionable hats. But I think if it's just the hats, you're getting off really lightly.
A huge amount of, from what I remember reading, there's a huge amount of the budget went on buying the actual clothing that they're talking about is what they're wearing. So it's like actual Gucci, it's actual Prada. It's not like we got something that looks kind of like it. They spent a huge amount, which I love. I love when a film really cares about the thing that it's about. If that makes sense. Like when a fashion film really cares about the fashion and does it properly. I love that.
Yeah, it is. At the end of the day, I do think it is a movie about clothes.
Yeah.
You know, and it would be such. Well, okay, so talking about investing in what the thing is about, there is a musical version of A Devil Wears Prada that's been adapted. It just had a run. Its first run in Chicago, music by Sir Elton John and lyrics by Shana Taub, who's a woman I know, which is amazing. And it got quite a challenging reception. And I think it's because movies are such a visual media. Yeah. And I think you can make a movie about clothes. And I don't know that you can make theater of it's just so about clothes, you know, it's such a different medium. Anyway.
I think that's, I guess like wearing a Prada jacket on a theatre stage isn't as, it just looks like a jacket from that far, unless you really know what you're looking for.
Yeah, who could tell?
Well, you can have a nice close-up on camera.
I was going to say, did this movie change, like, the way you perceive this movie change rewatching it? When was sort of the last time you watched it versus for watching it for this podcast?
What a great question. It must have been very long ago that I'd watched it, like maybe 10 years. And I think what really changed, certainly the culture has changed a lot in terms of fatphobia and what we allow and don't allow in culture. But maybe we'll get to that in a minute. I think something I was really shocked at my changing attitude about it is the, Meryl Streep's character and Anne Hathaway's character, they're kind of like feminist icons in different ways. And the feminism of it now just feels so much more complicated. Like the Miranda Priestley character, it just feels like such a second wave feminist figure of like, I get ahead by eliminating everything feminine about me. I've become the most masculine stereotype I can be of like, I'm the head bitch in charge, and that's how I get ahead. And Anne Hathaway's character aspires to this. She idolizes this. And as you say, Mikey, at the end, she respects her, but turns a different way, and that's so complicated now. I feel like we have different ideas of, feminism in the workplace now.
Yeah. I think the Miranda Priestley character is probably one of the most interesting characters in a lot of films in like the vast majority of films that I've watched, because she's so empathetic and you can be very sort of compassionate to her, because she relinquishes everything about her life to do her job, and you can definitely argue that she lets go of everything feminine, but also she works in the fashion industry. Like it's a really strange sort of thing where it's like she very much acts like a man in the workplace, and the workplace is a sort of female woman's role. Like it's a woman's quote unquote woman's industry. It's not. It's mostly owned by men, but it's sort of viewed as a feminine industry. And even there, it's like she has to let go of a lot of her femininity to be the boss. It's really interesting. Well, traditional femininity.
Yeah, and the things that get in the way are things that are so outside of her control, like her age, which like they point out would not be a problem if she was a man.
Yeah.
And her children, which is arguably a very feminine thing to have to protect. Is that she's saying it's the the newspapers, I want to they can say whatever they like about me, but what are they going to say about my children?
Yeah, it's such a beautiful trick of the script writing that they engender all this empathy for this character that is.
But she's also vile.
Abusive,
She's horrible.
Yeah, like the times you do get the slight glimpses into her life when she is kind of like, towards the end having like a bit of a breakdown and getting quite upset about things, but then she's immediately just like, nope, suck it up, carry on, kind of.
Yeah.
She kind of gives herself a moment to feel whatever she has to, and then she's like, right, back to the job, I guess.
I can't.
Yeah.
I can't risk. I can't afford.
Yeah.
I can't afford having emotions right now.
Or ever.
Yeah.
And I suppose
really.
a lot of, I mean, even these days, people like you say would be like, women can't do this job because they're too emotional, and it's like, fuck off, men are way worse for that kind of thing.
We just decided that men's emotions aren't real emotions.
No, exactly.
They're good.
Yeah, anger's not an emotion.
No. Anger's the baseline. What do you mean?
The movie doesn't actually have anything to say about how Miranda treats people. I mean, it's delicious how badly she treats them, and as you say, maybe in the book it was more skewering of her, but like Anne Hathaway's character wins in the movie by adopting Miranda's traits, by screwing over her friend who wants to go to Paris, and it says like, to win in a man's world, you have to shed feminine traits of cooperation, et cetera, whatever, and adopt masculine ones. And it's just interesting that it's a sort of, I don't know that you could make a movie today that didn't skewer this character,
Yeah.
And to this feminist end, Anne Hathaway's character, she like falls into a lot of traps in like female stories. Like she, when she starts taking her job very seriously, she immediately gets criticized socially. Her friends don't like her. Her boyfriend is mad, that, which is not something we hold men to ever, that taking your job. We don't often show men taking a job extremely seriously and talking about like, well, and this is how much it costs them to do that,
Yeah. What's also interesting is when she is criticized for her job, it's because her job is fashion and fashion is silly. Like,
yeah. And it's not a proper, she wants to be a journalist. Why is she doing this? Even though it's
journalism.
These days, if someone said, oh, I'm the assistant for the head, the CEO of Vogue, you'd be like, well, bloody hell, well done you. Like, obviously that's a career, that's a great career move. No matter what your actual long-term goal is, not, I don't want to, I know you've said you've been an assistant, I don't want to dismiss that. I would dismiss assistants in general, but most people don't set out as like, I want to be an assistant. That's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. It is a stepping stone. It's because you're learning so much by having to do so much for someone more higher up the ladder than you.
People that do want to be assistants and that's their life, they're very good at it and very scary people in my experience. Like they are people that can get stuff done and done before you ask it need to be done.
So like Stanley Tucci in this film.
Yeah, they're incredible people. When you meet someone that organised, couldn't have it.
Terrifying. But they start at the start when she's saying, okay, she gets this job. She's like, I've got to stick it out a year. That's all I've got to do, and then I can get a job that in something I actually want to do. Which is so common for people just starting out. And she's just graduated. This is like her first job, basically, that isn't, I assume like in the service industry or just, something very, and, this is her first proper, I'm doing hand things on a podcast again. Quote unquote proper job.
So relatable.
It's, and like, my first job and most people's first jobs is not what they want to do, but you have to have a job to get a job most of the time, and it all sort of leads somewhere. And this idea that she's, heaven forbid, starts to enjoy her job. It's like, how dare she do something hard, time consuming, and at some points fun and with perks. It's like she's really, her friends in the same scene are thanking her for her gifts and then getting really cross when her really her awful boss rings her, and it's like, no, she said this was going to happen. This lady has a reputation. She's doing it for a year. It's not been a year yet. What the fuck do you expect's going to happen? Like, stick it out. And her boyfriend goes from being like, oh, this is great opportunity for you. Oh, I'm sorry it's so stressful. I'm going to support you, make you grilled cheese sandwiches and tell you that you're beautiful, to how dare you miss my birthday? Like, you said you were going to be there, and your boss has this habit of like ruining our plans, but I'm still going to hold it against you because you're the one that's doing the job you said you were going to do. And it's like, what does he, what did they think it was going to be like? And it's like all her friends break these promises that they've made to her that they're going to understand. And then as soon as the going gets tough, they don't care. They're not there for her. And it's so isolating for her when I remember like there's that scene where she's talking to, is his name Marcus in it? The designer.
Yeah. Can't remember.
I'm not good with names.
No.
Ever. Absolutely ever. And, but she's saying, oh, my relationship's going up in smoke. And he's like, well, wait until your whole life's destroyed, and that's probably when you do a promotion.
Nigel.
That's right.
Nigel.
Well done.
I didn't remember that. I just looked on that box.
We weren't even close.
Nigel, because I should know it, because one of my favourite scenes is when she goes, Nigel. Yeah, and we have the makeover scene, which is one of my I love that scene. But yeah, her friends are just when I was younger, I remember watching this and thinking, oh my God, Anne Hathaway's such a bitch, abandoning her friends just to go to work. And now that, I have a job and a mortgage and a responsibility, I'm like, what? No, of course she has to go to work. Like, of course she has to do her job. Her job sucks, but it's a means to an end at this point. Yeah. Like, she's set a fairly definite end, and all she's got to do is stick it out. And, all her friends had to do was stick it out with her for a year.
Yeah.
And that's not, I mean, it feels like a long time when you're a teenager watching it, but as an adult, I'm like, there's most things I would be able to tolerate for a year to then get, open doors to whatever I wanted to do going forward.
Yeah, it's like, it's not just a job, it's probably one of the best jobs in the city to open doors.
It's her big break, essentially.
It's incredible.
And her friends are like, well, this is actually quite inconvenient. Can you not?
How dare you affect our life?
So that was the way it changed, because I love this. I watched this film a lot. We had this on DVD as a kid. It was one of the 12, I think, working DVDs we had.
Wow.
I remember it because it's got a red. I only remember the DVDs we had if they had a different color box, and this one had a red box. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. We had the book as well, and I remember the book was on my bookshelf for a very long time, but I never actually got around to reading it. But yeah, I've watched this so many times, and I've always been in love with Anne Hathaway. So it's always been an easy sell for me in that respect. But yeah, I think not knowing anything about New York, it does feel pretty wonderful as well. The way that it's like, just everything feels like it's on the doorstep, because obviously they don't make you watch the commute, because
Look, and if you have an assistant job like that, I had a friend who had an assistant job like that, and they were not allowed to take the subway because they had to be reachable at all times.
Wow.
And so that kind of stuff is they don't
having the driver and all of that was so
the company
cool.
would hire the driver.
The work ethic, though, just now as an adult who struggles with general, fatigue and existing, the idea of this always on kind of thing is absolutely insane. Like, I work set hours, and outside of those hours, I'm not on call. I'm not working. Right. If you want to reach me, and it's an emergency, I will find out the next day, because there is absolutely no emergency that could be to do with work that I would need to know about when I'm not working.
Yeah, we have that too, but on a much lamer scale, because every so often our shop gets messages on their Facebook page at about 11:30 at night. Have you got this particular thing in stock, like this fish? And I'm like, I'm not there.
How am I supposed to check?
I was saying for you, like a power cut might be like an emergency for you at work because the fish could die.
Yeah, but not
for me, like
what of this have you got in stock at the minute? I'm like, there are so many different kinds. I don't know.
my manager has my personal number for in case I'm off sick. So that I can text her, I can WhatsApp her to say I'm off sick, so I don't have to call in if I'm too ill to call. And that's it. Like, if she contacted me outside of work, like, it's so inappropriate. It's such a different culture. Whereas, like,
y'all are blowing my mind.
Especially if you're getting paid for it as well. That's the main thing.
Yeah. So, like, I had a job. I was due to have a job. I never actually got it because I decided to, had a small accident instead of going to work for a while. But I would have been on call overnight, staying in a residential home for people with deafblindness. So I wasn't paid full living. I wasn't paid like the full rate, like hourly rate wage, but you were paid like a night subsidy, basically. So you'd stay over, you'd sleep in a bed there, and you'd get paid your hours if something happened in the night that you had to wake up for. But for the most part, the night shift that were paid the night shift wages, they were there. It was just if they needed an extra pair of hands, if there was an emergency and one of them had to go to hospital or something. And and I remember thinking at the time, like, well, that's so stingy. But like that, it's not just like you still have to be there. You're physically somewhere else. You're not at home. And then you see these jobs where it's like she's called at any time. She's waking. I'm like, I don't know how many hours she's doing. It seems like she's there more like 80 hours, sort of. It's crazy. And full time in the UK is 40 hours. And if you're doing more than that, like a lot of the time you have to. Yeah, there's a lot of protection. You kind of have to sign a disclaimer to say that you're okay with it.
That's amazing.
I just like my first job was not. It was entry level. Not first job, but like my first big girl job. After uni was not very much. I don't want to date the podcast by saying how much it is in case in 10 years time people are like but that's optimistic. That is quite optimistic. Like I was working, it was 37.5 hours, and I was not expected to work outside of that. And like if you send emails outside of working hours, I would get like my manager would check in and be like, you okay? Why were you checking your emails? Like you don't need to do that. And it just seems absolutely mad. I know that there's like startups in London and that probably have similar crazy work ethics, but for I'd say the majority of the UK, people don't work like that. And it just like as a child I was like, oh, that's so cool, she's so like in the thick of it. But now I'm like, that's awful. Where are her hobbies?
Yeah, and the movie really glorifies it, right? Like at the end, Anne Hathaway, you're meant to feel like she needed to have that experience so that now she can go and work for this newspaper. So there's no criticism of this at all in the movie.
No, it's very hyper capitalist. Like, people are work grunts because even Miranda's at the absolute top, and her criticisms are she's not dedicating enough time to her family. She, her husband leaves her because he never sees her, which what I think is fair in the husband's defense. Like, if you don't ever see someone, you're not really with them. But if you're earning that much money, you're the CEO of a company. Like, cut your hours. Oh, sorry. Head editor? Editor-in-chief?
It is at the top, but it's not at the top business-wise. It's at the top.
Yeah, she doesn't own the company, does she? Because that's owned by the other guy that she has to essentially blackmail
her
to
boss.
keep a job.
Like,
her
one
boss.
and only boss. Like, the only person above her.
But why? Yeah, I can understand. Like, editor is a big, important job, and that's why it pays the big bucks. But that should come with like a lot of holiday, and like Americans just don't seem to. No offense, this is generalizing. You don't seem to have very much holiday in the States.
Oh, well, that's not the fault of Americans.
No, I wasn't saying that's what you all choose. But it's wild. I only know this because I used to work for a technically global company, and like I was doing the same job as someone else who had an equivalent role in the States, and like we had such different benefits. And it was absolutely like things like having limited amounts of sick days and stuff like that, which just isn't I mean, you can get told off and written up and stuff for taking too many sick days in the UK, but like there's a big process you have to go to, and you kind of have to, if you can't prove that you were sick, that's an issue. But if you were sick, they're not allowed to like fire you.
Yeah, American culture is really obsessed with the idea that, like, to the winner goes the spoils. That if you work harder than everyone else and you sacrifice more than anyone else, that you will be the most prosperous. You know, and that really goes back to, I mean, that's really deeply rooted in our culture from like the Puritanism that the country was founded on. It really runs really deep. You know, the idea that we should protect our own and create things like leave, maternity leave, worker protections. You know, the U.S. is an extremely anti-union country. And movies like The Devil Wears Prada really forward this idea, and that, you know, if you're smarter, faster, you get everything.
Yeah, and it's like she's got to work hard, but she's then expected to apply that work ethic. She doesn't learn that Miranda's job is awful and she shouldn't want anything like it. It's that she's like, Miranda's job is awful and I want to be the equivalent of her in a more respectable industry.
Yeah.
Like I want to be editor-in-chief of not the Telegraph, but do they have a Telegraph in America? I assume it's
the Telegraph. No, I
no.
mean,
well, similar. New York Times would be a good one, maybe. Who reads newspapers? That's one thing that is a bit like, okay, journalism.
I
guess and magazines as well now. But I mean, Vogue, I think, is still going pretty strong.
Yeah, Vogue kind of like.
This was certainly before, I mean, the internet had exploded, Facebook existed, but social media as we know it didn't exist at this time. And there was, you know, print media was still alive and well at this time.
Yeah.
And one piece of like elder millennial tech nostalgia I have for this movie is Anne Hathaway walks in and she has a paper portfolio of like clippings from her paper, you know, like that she has to show. And I remember,
and they're mounted on black card. It's so cute.
Yes. Yeah. And when I got to New York City, I made something like this.
Oh,
you know, because I was like, everyone's supposed to do this. And I remember going into my very first meeting, and this was a few years after the movie came out, but the person was like, I'm telling you right now, you need to burn this and make a website.
Yep.
It's like bringing a printed CV now to an interview. It's like, honey, no.
Exactly. But it's still at this time, it was like, it's still in that in-between phase, you know.
I think we're at a point at the other end of that where if you bought in, like, if you were going for a job like that and you bought something like that in, it might look kind of good for you.
You might stick out at this point.
He has a printer.
Yeah,
and it
works.
There's
something very like
yes, I have a printer, but it's like 50-50 at the moment. It's aging, and I'm loath to replace it because you know, who wants to spend money on a printer these days? We use it like once in a blue moon. I'm legally changing my name at the moment, and this is the most I've had to print in ages.
I believe it. I will not do that. I can't. It's too much.
It's too much hassle.
Sorry, not to do with the podcast at all. But,
to me, the obvious biggest thing that's aged so horribly is the fat phobia in the movie.
Yes,
how incredibly, I think at the end of the day, incredibly uncritical of the fat phobia in the movie. I mean, it's just so
kind of like eating disorders don't exist and are not a phenomenon. And like, and anorexia isn't a thing. It's just not a problem. Like this woman who has clearly got an eating disorder just has it as a means to an end, and then when she doesn't need to be thin anymore, she gets to eat pudding, it's like, it'll just stop. It's like a switch. It's awful.
It's so weird tonally because you're meant to laugh, but you're not laugh out of satire. You're not meant to laugh out of how you're just meant to laugh at how frivolous women are.
It's very misogynistic. This kind of fat phobia is like, oh well, the joke is that obviously Emily Blunt is gorgeous and incredibly slim, but
crazy is she? for bending herself to the standard of beauty that we've imposed on her. Her desire to live up to my dreams of her makes her frivolous. Like you just can't win in that circle.
That's her fault. It's her fault she's doing this.
Yeah. Why would she want to be that thin? Oh yeah, because the only clothes that will fit her that we've designed and put in the magazines are for girls that are women that are that thin. And Anne Hathaway's, they call her fat. Like, what is Miranda describes her as the the ugly?
Take a chance on the smart fat girl.
Yeah,
yeah. And it was so at the top of culture. Like Devil Wears Prada is at the top of the broadest part of culture, and you were able to speak like this, And recently, this interview that Emily Blunt did. I don't know if you guys saw this on the internet. Emily Blunt was on, I think it was the Jonathan Ross show in 2012, and she was giving a late night interview and talking about eating at a restaurant in America, and she was talking about her waitress, and she kind of goes on and on about how like disgusting and fat the waitress was.
Yeah.
And this thing kind of resurfaced, and she had to come, in the last 6 months, and she had to like come out and apologize and be like, I cannot believe that came out of my mouth. That's not something I believe, et cetera, which I do believe her when she says that. But I think it just shows how incredibly baked in this all was in culture, how incredibly acceptable it was.
We sweep it under the carpet now as well. So many places don't want to even, they don't do what Emily Blunt has done now and come out and say this is crazy. They've just pretend it never happened.
Yeah, and we've noticed. We've done a lot of mid 2000s movies, and all that kind of thing is just so like normal at the time, and it wasn't a thing, I guess. It was just like like
that's just how we talk to each other.
I don't know if this is to Emily Blunt's credit, but I know that has an extra layer on it that's not in the movie, that like that there is a component that of talking about Americans. People like to say that Americans are big, and as a point of I don't even know what, but it is like a full stereotype that she's leaning on there that I think plays well to maybe the audience of the Jonathan Ross show. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, potentially. Which
he's not the greatest of people.
Even I was going to say
He's a pretty awful person.
Don't watch a great deal of Jonathan Ross, but with Emily Blunt, like when is surrounded by that atmosphere. Not only is she in this movie that is incredibly fat, not even fat phobic, like eating phobic, like having any kind of balanced diet phobic. She's also an actress in the 2000s, which relies on you being incredibly beautiful and incredibly slim without looking like you've had too much work done. And you've also got, how else do you motivate yourself except for shitting on everyone else? Because you can't eat your feelings. Like the only way to like keep yourself going and motivate it must be to like not just to be like, oh god, I don't want to be like her, she's chubby, and you're looking at Anne Hathaway with not even remotely looking overweight in like any stretch of the imagination. And like I said, in English, like in UK sizes, being a small to medium, which by its very nature implies not large. We've forgotten. We seem to have moved on from this, like the race to 00 and just everyone have like the glorification of eating disorders that we had, and this like it's really crazy now. Having grown up, like that was what I read in magazines as a like developing child, and I saw I don't know if you have. Do you have Special K in America? The cereal, not Kemin.
We have that too.
It's a very British thing as well.
I've tried one of them. You can guess which.
I really hope it. I really hope.
You're like, sorry, I don't have breakfast.
It's
where we find out you're gluten intolerant. It's like, okay. But that Special K, I remember the Special K diet, which was you have one meal a day and a bowl of Special K, or like you replace 2 of your meals a day with Special K, and that was it. And that was your diet, and it's just that's insane.
That's the doctor on,
and it was like
payroll.
Yeah. And
To be fair,
like,
you're not going to eat much when you're knocked out on ketamine, so it's fine.
Yeah, maybe it is an appetite suppressant.
That's right.
I had an absolutely horrible time on ketamine, but I had just been hit by a car, so I'm like, that's probably not the best as far as experimenting goes. Like, not
a funny cultural difference. We would say ketamine.
Oh, ketamine. That makes it sound so fashionable.
I know, ketamine. Yeah.
It sounds like a posh person's name.
Yeah.
Darling, let's bring ketamine in for dinner.
Ketamine. The problem is you get nicknamed Ket, and no one wants
Ket.
that.
Ketty.
Yeah, that's right.
No one wants to be nicknamed Ket.
Well, yeah, ketamine aside, it's a weird... I think because these industries are now trying so hard to go the other way and be like, no, we're the good guys, really.
Yeah.
We want everyone to feel good in their skin as long as they are still insecure enough to buy all our clothes and it feels like, wear all our makeup.
It feels like a lot of companies kind of say something, like fashion companies and all that stuff. They say something and then they kind of wait for everyone's reaction and then they go, yes?
Are we kidding? You tell me.
Like, Dove puts out an advert with, like, every single type of person they can think of, and then there's, like, a pause of, is this an okay advert for us to put out? And then if culture says yes, they keep putting them out.
Yeah, it's like inclusivity. It's now you're almost allowed to, you can include, like, fat people and people with disabilities and all of that, but everyone's still photoshopped to shit, and all these products are still geared towards you. There's more, I guess, body positivity.
Yeah,
now
it's definitely better. But it's still companies trying to work out what they are allowed. Like,
what's the most we can get away with?
It's like they don't actually care. They don't actually want to do all of this stuff. They just want to be like, how
many boxes can we tick to make everyone be like, oh yeah, cool, good.
Like, women still aren't really allowed to age, is what I feel like. And if they have work done, there's still, and men as well now, it's more and more apparent that men are having things like Botox and nose jobs and everything that they always were having, but now, like, it's drawn attention to, and it's kind of, the next thing is that you have to stay perfect your whole life without ever going under the knife, but also having your photo taken 20 times a day.
It feels kind of weird where, like, we were at a point where there was so much pressure on women to look a very particular way, and like an impossible way, and men could kind of look like whatever, grey hair, doesn't matter. And for somehow it's gone down the route of, well, everyone now has to reach this insane standard, instead of, how about no one does?
Yeah.
How about no one has to reach these standards and people can look how if they want work done, they get work done. If they don't, they don't. It's like, no, now everyone has to reach this insane standard. And it's like, we could be good. We could collectively decide that isn't a thing.
We could all just not.
Yeah, we could all just stop with that for like a minute. It would be great for everyone.
And a lot of that is probably like with the rise of a lot of social medias and stuff, where it's like, back like in the mid 2000s, you're probably only seeing all of these incredibly skinny people and whatever in a bunch of magazines sitting around, whereas now it's constant all the time. Like when you're scrolling through Instagram and all that sort of thing, it's always there. So that's probably not helped.
I had a shocking realization the other day when I was at work, where the generation with like TikTok and like the generation after us, the TikTok types, and like Instagram and all that stuff, as a generation, they're probably the most aware of what they look like.
Yeah.
Like no other generation on the planet has been that hyper aware of every single detail of their body, because it's constantly being filmed, it's constantly being shown. That sounds horrible. Like, I struggle to walk past a mirror some days. The idea that, like, I know I'm going to be somewhere and I'm going to have 100 phone cameras pointed at me, and I just have to be okay with it.
Yeah, at least when it was disposable cameras, the resulting photos were not good anyway. And
the best thing about bad cameras, you wouldn't get a good photo of yourself, so you didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, and there's so many steps between that and someone else seeing it that you can you can vet and veto everything before they get seen. I've got brilliant. I mean, they're still all over Facebook because I was 13 when I got Facebook, and
wow.
They're like, there's this gap where it's like there's some photos that are definitely scanned in, like photos, and then there's photos that are from smartphones. Oh, well, not smartphones, from flip phones that had cameras, and they capture 13 like perfectly because it's really pixelated. It's really bad.
Yeah,
but we're all like the photos are like we're having a good time. We're having fun. Like the poses are really childish and silly. Whereas I feel like when I see, I mean, I try not to see 13-year-olds on TikTok because that's not really any of my business, and I'm not. Yeah.
The algorithm to not do
algorithm, like, please, this is not. You're not. I don't want to see 13-year-olds dancing to like the latest hit or whatever. But yeah, they are hyper aware of how they look and they're posing. It seemed really scary, and it's not just photos; it's videos, obviously. And like, how do you look good in a video like the whole time?
No one looks good in motion. No one. There's a reason films cut as much as they do. No one looks good in motion.
It's such a different relationship to what it means to put on artifice and like adorn oneself, which is part of what this movie's about.
Yeah, 100%. Sure, we should get back to the movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, excellent segue back into the movie.
Incredible. You're really good at.
Yeah, you should do this more often.
Movie is on topic.
Well, I have something to say about the movie that I really admired at the time, and I still deeply admire. Which it is an incredible script. That is an incredible script. It's a pretty short movie. When you look at what is covered in the amount of time, it's an incredibly efficient script. It teaches you the language of the world right out the gate. You move from event to event incredibly quickly. The Cerulean monologue is an incredible piece of writing.
Yeah.
It's certainly made deeper and richer by the incredible performances, but it is a masterclass in screenwriting. It's an incredible script.
When I was at uni, I did a year on screenwriting as like part of my university, and one of our every teacher was like, read this script, read this script, read this script. I had 3 tutors that did that. I had one that did Jaws, and the other 2 were like Devil Wears Prada.
Wow.
Read the Devil Wears Prada script. It is incredible. And I was like, I've sat and read the actual found the script somewhere and read it, and
wow.
Yeah, it's an incredible piece of art as a script, and a lot of it I found out with Miranda Priestley, with Meryl Streep's character. She was very different when it was originally written, and Meryl Streep did a lot of that. Like she added a lot of the character stuff to Miranda Priestley, which I think is really cool. There's a lot of scenes that were added. Like one of my favorite scenes, just because of where it sits in the film, is where the main Anne Hathaway's character just isn't in it, and it's when they're sat down talking about what's going to be in the next year.
Yeah,
and it's such a short scene, and very little happens, but it explains so much of Miranda Priestley's character.
Is it the one where she goes florals for spring? Groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Her delivery is
iconic line.
Her delivery.
One of the 2 of the people in that movie, in that scene, just plain staffers that have no lines, are incredibly famous New York theater directors. It's fun.
Oh wow!
Oh, cool.
I love that scene because it introduces the next stage of the film where Miranda starts to become more.
You see her talent. She's not just an evil bitch.
Yeah.
In that scene, she's
terrible.
doing it really well.
Yeah, she's terrible, but that's what her job needs her to be, and she's very, very good at it. She isn't just. It isn't just picking out stuff to go in a magazine. It isn't just.
It's not random.
Yeah, it isn't just you do oranges in summer and you do red and green. It's very specific and very talented, and it's a lot of skill and forethought goes into it, and that's all that scene is for. And you're like, she has this room full of people who are all specialists at what they do, and she knows the most out in that room, and she understands it the best. And
much better than the scene a bit later when Anne Hathaway's like, I get it, urban, and it's like the urban jungle photo shoot outside, and she then just says the most basic thing about it being like wild in the park or something. It's like, okay, like, yeah, cool, yeah. keep making the coffees.
Speaking of famous quotes from this movie, I had forgotten that there's a quote in this movie that was all over TikTok for a time, and it's at the very end where she goes, "What if I don't want to live the way that you live?" And Meryl Streep goes, "Don't be ridiculous, Andrea. Everybody wants this." I mean, that was everywhere on TikTok for a long time. I think people still do it, and I forgot that it was from The Devil Wears Prada.
There's so many good like little quotes in this that are just nonsensical, and like standard alone. Like when she after the makeover and she walks in, and it's the boots line. It's like, oh, are they the new? It's like, are they the new Prada or something like that? And she's like, yes, they are. And that I remember being everywhere for such a short amount of time. Like, that's such a weird thing to pick out from this film. And
TikTok like, good for random lines resurfacing.
Yeah,
I love. Really, I do love. Well, I don't love it because it makes me feel old. But when the kids discover something,
and they call it
vintage. Yeah, vintage. Have you seen this like cult classic film? And I'm like, that's not cult classic. It's not old enough. It's not been around long enough. You can't call it that.
2001, and you're like, it's not vintage.
And they're like, well, it was before I was born, and I'm just like, shut up.
Yeah, like it's Legally Blonde vintage, probably.
Oof, I hope not. Yeah, and the cerulean speech is so good. It's so well.
I remember that actually kind of making me think about fashion a bit more when I first watched that. I must have been 10, I think, when I like the first. I don't remember the first time I watched this film, but I remember I do remember that scene and being like, I've learnt a bit about fashion. And trying to think in that mind, like, oh, where's this come from? What is this? What is this a reference to? And I mean, unfortunately, I still grew up in the in the noughties, so my outfits were terrible. But maybe they weren't, because I saw a girl the other day walking towards the university with embroidered bootcut jeans, and I had embroidered bootcut jeans for a lot of my childhood. It's all coming back.
Young fashion coming back.
And to your point, Mikey, about Miranda Priestley being just better than everyone, it's like in any movie or story that's about a genius at something, there's always got to be the scene where they show you how much better they are than you could ever be, and how much better they understand it. And that's Cerulean monologue. It's just a perfect example of, it's like an aria. It's like a virtuoso, it's like a total, it's going to town. It's amazing.
Yeah. The whole Cerulean speech is amazing, because she is just like Anne Hathaway's character. I can't remember what is it, Anne Hathaway's character, was it Andy?
Andy.
Andy. She thinks it's between two belts that, to be fair, do look the same.
Yeah.
And the lady is like, they're so different, and it's like the buckles.
The costume designer nailed it. Well done.
Yeah, it was incredible, because you are looking at it, you are like, no, those are the same.
They look the same.
That, as an audience, you're in the mindset of, like, every audience member looked, unless they knew fashion, every audience member was like, those are the same belt.
Yeah.
And as soon as you have that thought, she says it, and Miranda does the speech, and it's the most quietly threatening speech.
Oh, it's absolutely cutting.
Where she's just like, every single, and it's about, like, you might not find fashion interesting, it might not be your thing, it's still important to the world, like, it's still gone through hundreds of people to get to the bin that you pulled out of. That was the best bit, is when she was like, from whatever second-hand bin you.
Which again, when you talk about like complicated notions of feminism, it's an incredibly feminist thing. This entire monologue, this fashion industry that you think is frivolous, that she just shows you how important it is.
And how much money it makes men, which is why it's important.
Yeah,
fair enough. Yeah.
And it's an incredible speech, and so, like, I've seen so many videos of people just learnt it off by heart.
Yeah,
because it is so. There's something very satisfying about the way she talks, about how calm she is, and how certain she is. There's no like wavering in her in what she says. It's incredible.
What a beautiful takedown.
The other thing that in this film I felt hadn't aged well is the smarmy dude that gets her from the other publication company,
Mm.
and how he ruthlessly pursues her. Because that is very much the Prince Charming thing of, no, keep trying. You'll get the girl eventually. As long as you're persistent, you can wear her down.
Yeah, he was such a sleazy arsehole. I was just like, don't go for this guy. He's going to ruin your life.
Especially
You're so right, Dan.
Yeah.
The rest of the film is like, it's going to be hard to be in a relationship. It's weird that they added a relationship.
Yeah.
And she's also, it does that thing that I find very naughty and very misogynistic, is where the woman finally does sleep with the man, which you're kind of made to believe is what is supposed to happen the whole time. She's then immediately punished by finding out literally while she's still nude and holding the blanket to her chest that he's a total asshole who's like trying to take down Miranda.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's, maybe taking down Miranda's not the end of the world, but like, Christ, like that's still her boss and that's still her job, because you can assume that you're not going to get 2P'd over and carry on working for the French lady. Like your job is gone at that point. And it's like this, well, we told you he was bad and you slept with him anyway, so that's your fault. You should be with the nice guy that just was really horrible to you about doing your job. And she gets back with him at the end, kind of. And that's just like, no. That's the Marilyn Monroe thing, but for real, where it's like, if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. It's like, well, that rings true a little bit here, because he couldn't handle her when she was going through something really difficult and rough. And he was a total arsehole about it. But like, now that she's moved on from that and it's back to being, the Andy that we all know and love, like, of course she can come. And that just, at the end, that really wound me up this time watching it. It was like, no, don't you don't need either of them. It wasn't a one or the other. Find someone who respects you.
What a false choice.
Yeah, find someone that also has a career and has a life.
And can do more than being able to make you a sandwich is not like the be all and end all of relationships, because what else does he do except shit on her job?
Yeah,
I do like a good sandwich, though.
Oh yeah,
and he is absolutely gorgeous, but that's not the point. I don't think Anne Hathaway would struggle, even if she is wearing a polyester jumper. Most people can look past that.
Yeah. They're like, as weird as it is to say, aesthetics are so important to this film. The way that everyone looks at all times is, I know that's the whole point of the film, is like everything is about the way everyone looks. It's really cool how the film wasn't just like everyone's going to be in fashion all the time. Everyone's going to be in the greatest clothes. And there are these little moments where even like the fashion people break from that. And every single character, like we see Emily Blunt's character, she gets sick, she ends up in hospital, and she's suddenly not fashionable, and she can't be because she's in like a really serious situation.
Yeah.
And she can't do fashion, so she eats. That's it.
Yeah. And we like when Miranda's being particularly vulnerable, when her husband's just sort of served the divorce or said that he wants a divorce, she's not wearing makeup, and she's still, it's still Helen Mirren. She's still very glamorous.
Not Helen Mirren.
Not Helen.
True, this is not Helen Mirren.
For fuck's sake.
Helen Mirren.
I think a lot about Helen Mirren, I think.
I don't know why. In my head, they are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, they are.
It's so fun. So funny.
Yeah, Meryl Streep. Sorry. Yeah, she looks vulnerable, but it's like, she's not wearing makeup. And it's like, if you saw a man not wearing makeup in one scene and then not wearing makeup in like, you wouldn't be like, he's suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
that's her walls are down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's her. I had a friend that always described wearing makeup as war paint.
Yeah, that's right.
That's her war paint is gone. I love that scene. And again, there's another scene where I think Meryl Streep was the one that decided to do it with no makeup. And it is so important because that scene would hit differently. It would land differently if she still looked like Miranda Priestley. It would feel different. And
that's absolutely right.
And it is like her worst moment, and the worst moment, arguably, of her that we know of her life.
Right.
Like, she's such a highly strung, highly powered, highly controlling person. Suddenly, like, the bit of her life that she can't control is left. It's gone. She becomes a person for like a moment.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Beautifully said, Mikey.
And then she moves on so quickly.
Yeah.
She sits there so quietly and so serenely in that moment of just like, this is how it is now. And then Andy's like, is there anything you need? Is there anything to do? Because what a person should be doing is having emotions and crying and reacting. And she's just like, no, I'm fine. We need to get on with.
Well, she's just like, what? And Andy's like, oh, what do you want me to like? What do you want me to do? Or what can I do to help? And she's like, your job. Do your job.
Yeah, let's get on with it.
Yeah.
And she has to sit there and
she doesn't even want to cancel her evening.
Yeah.
I'd be like, do you want me to book you a flight home? Do you want to be with your children? Or, speak to your just anything except work. It's so weird that this work trumps everything, even personal disaster.
And that's America.
That's capitalism. It kind of feels like she uses work to escape that at that moment, where she's just like, I need to.
There is
get on with
definitely that side of it. It's like keep calm, carry on kind of side of.
Yeah, because if she, like it says at the end, if she isn't doing that job, the company will fall apart, and it won't. Like, it just won't, because she's not the only person on the planet that can do that job. She's not the only person that's gone through all of that.
But it's the only way she can justify her behaviour.
Yeah. And the proof that she's not the only person that's gone through that is because currently that's what Andy's going through. Like, it's standard for that industry. Her life is standard, not unique. And she's put that much pressure on herself to be completely perfect that when something goes wrong, she kind of has to go, and I will move on.
Yeah. As if it's all part of the plan.
Yeah. And it's like that part of the plan doesn't affect her job. So it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if her life falls apart as long as the magazine's still running.
And if she holds herself to this incredibly high and unachievable and unbalanced thing, then she can hold everyone else to that standard.
Yeah.
And anything less than isn't good enough.
Yeah.
Whereas if my manager was that intense, I'd be like, well, I mean,
that's your decision.
That's it's your choice, but in my opinion, that's a very bad one that I am not going to follow you up on.
This is your problem.
Yeah, it's like, you need therapy. And like a month off minimum?
Miranda Priestley really needs therapy. I can't imagine being the therapist. That would be awful, but she needs
that'd be so, just like, where do you even start?
I was turned down from therapy. Why? They said it was just too much to deal with.
Yeah, so you end up with this chain, like your therapist has a therapist who has a therapist who has a therapist. And like between the 6 of you, you just about manage to make her, not cry.
Yeah. And she's fine.
Or able to cry, even. God, yeah.
And even at the end, when her career looks like it's about to topple because someone wants to move her on and get a new editor because of, like, and another proof
she's
that
old.
She isn't the only person that can do it. Desi, like, Runway France, the editor of Runway France, is another person doing her exact job. Like, she's clearly not the only person that can do it, and that's probably really scary to her, because that's who's going to replace her. And
if she loses her job, ultimately, what has she got left? She's made it's her entire identity.
Yeah, it is that. It's also like, if Anna Wintour loses her job at Vogue, she can get another job. She doesn't need to. She can get another job. She can walk into any journalistic environment and get a job as an editor. Just the connection she has.
Or just do some consultancy work.
Just
freelance. Retire, yeah.
Just retire. Get a hobby.
Like, yeah, do a TED Talk.
What would her hobby be? What would Miranda Priestley's, like, key hobby be?
You see, because I'm confusing her with Helen Mirren. I'm thinking of Red, where she's a British assassin. But
I love that crossover that we all want. I think she'd get into like crochet. I think but it would be like elaborate and fancy, and she'd have an Instagram for it.
I think she'd be making fashion, but for like dolls' houses, dolls, like miniature fashion.
Do you reckon it would get weird? You'd be like, "That's a weird one."
Yeah, I feel like she'd struggle to not be super intense.
Yeah.
See, I don't think she's going to do anything. I think she's going to buy stuff to watch, like a sports team or horses.
Oh yeah, horses is a good one. You can sink a lot of time and money into horses.
Yeah. Would she be
race them for you?
Maybe, pay attention to her children because they're quite young.
No. No, she does one good thing for them throughout the film where she's directly involved.
Oh, getting
them the Harry Potter book?
Yeah.
Yeah. Early.
Impossible standard of getting a Harry Potter book that's not been released yet.
I mean, that was serious shit though. Like I remember queuing for Harry Potter books.
Yeah. That aged this film.
Yeah.
Yeah, back when we thought it was good,
It's essentially if you haven't, she asked Andy to find 2 copies of the manuscript from Harry Potter.
Published manuscript of the next Harry Potter book.
The like final one as well.
Is it the final one? Yeah. I wasn't sure if it said. But
they've read that one. They know what happens. They want to know what happens next. Because she wants to get Andy fired. She wants like a reason to fire Andy.
She does say like, if you can't do this, don't bother coming. Like, don't come back.
Yeah.
Which in England would be sort of be grounds for a bit of a labour trial, employment tribunal kind of thing. Sort of. I don't know. Our work regulations aren't that good. No, you normally, if you've worked somewhere for 2 years, you tend to get a bit more protection, and ACAS gets involved. But before that, it's
if you can prove
it's that they discriminated against you.
Yeah.
You can go to court, and they have to give you a lot of money.
Yeah.
As in pay you for all the time that they should have employed you and more until you find another job.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a good thing, I think.
Yeah.
I'm really good at getting a new job after like 18 months though, so it's not something I've ever really.
Sure. There's also that.
If it's before 2 years and if it's a protected characteristic, because we're dead keen on them in the UK, like they can't fire you because you're pregnant or because you're, an ethnic minority or disabled, or you can't, if you get hurt and can't do your job anymore.
Yeah.
They have to find you something
in the US,
else
except they can fire you if you get hurt.
Which is crazy because that's their job. That's their job as a company, is to make sure you don't get hurt doing your job.
They're like, sorry, you've gotten hurt and have to pay for the to get better, so we're going to cut off your money. Goodbye.
Yeah,
and your insurance is also tied to your job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saying that, I lost my job when I got hit by a car.
Yeah.
That was fun.
We have those protections. Companies will work out how to get around them.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating.
To be fair, I hadn't actually started yet. I'd done 2 training days. Didn't quite count, unfortunately. Not that I'm bitter about that at all. It's fine.
What a bummer.
Yeah, well.
Bad time. Not the worst thing that happened that day, let's be honest.
It was I remember it was a real kick me while I'm down. Not gonna, literally.
Yeah.
But, whatever. I got another job in the end, didn't I? And it all worked out, but much better job, really. So it's fine.
This film's fascinating.
It's a really good one to rewatch, I think.
Yeah.
Because I'd forgotten so much about I remember the overall plot, and I remembered the Miranda character and Andy's character, but the fat phobia, they're like the homophobia a little bit as well. Like the stereotypes in it are pretty, stereotypical. They're in there for a 2006 movie. It could have been a lot worse.
Yes.
It really could have been a lot worse, but it's still not 100. It's not ideal.
Yeah. But it really captures the excesses of American culture before the 2008 financial crash. It's really amazingly. It's such a time capsule in that way.
Is it like do you reckon? What do you reckon? What do you reckon makes that so like obvious in the film? Like,
I don't know. I just feel like after 2008 was just such chaos. I guess it's the when I think of 2006, 2007, I think of just like there was so much like glitz and glamour to it. Like money was cheap, and you could have a movie that had $1 million costume budget, and people would go to the movies and see it. And there just was a lot. All the money was moving, and I think you can
feels
see that
really
in that
glamorous.
movie.
Yeah, it's really glamorous. Just obviously with the fashion, but also the buildings are gorgeous. The cars. Her friends are like successful in their fields, which is mad that how much shit they give Andy when one of them is a photographer.
Yeah,
it was like surely she had to do her time as well.
She's been doing work.
Like, why is
was this filmed in New York?
Certainly. Certainly the streets scenes were, I'm sure. And then probably there's lots of sound stages in New York City, and I'm imagining that's probably what they did.
It feels like filming in New York is very expensive, because now like they mostly film in like Canada or in like New Zealand, where it's slightly cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of states in the U.S. compete to be like more favorable for film crews. Everyone wants to get because they're just
we just go to Ireland, I think, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, England used to have the UK used to have a really good system for filming, where it was like subsidized by the lottery, and we had a lot of like massive tax breaks for using UK crews and filming in the UK. And then there was a government, particularly 13 years ago, that got rid of it. Now that government's still in power, but
and it's not got better.
It's like, yeah, surprisingly they haven't fixed any of it. But yeah, we used to have that, and it's gone. But now, like, filming in London is really expensive, so no one does it apart from in studios. But yeah, this film it drips in excess, and everything is perfect in it.
Yeah, it's very glossy.
Yeah. But
you don't get any sense that like they are worried that people won't buy the clothes or something.
No, the magazine is not struggling.
Yeah,
it isn't. Miranda's got to work this hard, otherwise, fashion is going to end.
Yeah.
Like the stakes are just not that high.
After the recession of 2008 and the digital revolution, I mean, they were worried about people buying Vogue magazine.
Oh yeah.
That is actually really interesting. I never thought about that whilst watching it. Is in like, the worry that the company's going to fall apart is strictly from a management position. Like, if it's mismanaged, if it's mismanaged, no one will buy the magazine because the magazine is bad and the company will fail. It's never on. Nobody wants to buy the magazine, so nobody's going to buy the magazine.
Yeah. Or no one can afford to buy a $7 magazine.
Yeah.
These same characters 4 years later, they are shitting their pants because nobody wants to buy the magazine because it's all online and
all the advertisers are pulling out because what's the point of paying to have the centerfold of Vogue when you can buy ad space on Google?
I want to see Miranda Priestley dealing with that in 2009, 2010.
It would have been a great sequel.
It would have been a completely different film. It would have been about...
like The Devil Wears Primark.
Can you imagine the people that have to go to Anna Wintour and be like, okay, so we need to make TikTok content.
The worst part is, people have done that because there are TikToks with her in. And she's done YouTube videos. Like,
they have a very robust YouTube channel. Like somebody figured it out. But
like they definitely went. I mean, companies like Vogue have her entire job. The entire job that like Anna Wintour and Miranda Priestley has is looking at what's going to happen and looking on how to do it. Like that's their job, is to have foresight. Yeah, and like kind of control the culture. So yeah, it completely makes sense that someone would have been like, YouTube looks like it's going to be big. But the idea of like, I saw a video because I was looking stuff up about this film. I saw the video of like Anna Wintour talks about fashion throughout the years on a YouTube video, And like that wouldn't have been a thought in someone's head in 2006.
No,
Why would she debase herself making a video?
This was underneath to make a video, not even like for Vogue. Like I think it was for a different channel that did that as like a series.
Yeah.
Like why would she lower herself to making a YouTube video?
That would be such a good scene. Miranda Priestly like trying to film her first YouTube video. I mean, I would watch it all day.
Yeah. Because she'd come in, sit down, talk for 10 minutes and leave. Because she's got stuff to do.
Yeah. Or Stanley Tucci would look at the camera people and be like, "You got it?" And they're like trembling, you know. They're like, "Oh."
Like, can we take that again, please? No.
Yeah.
She tells Andy to organize the next YouTube video. Like, get the people in, get the social media man. The idea of Miranda Priestly talking to a social media manager is hilarious.
This is money, guys. We figured out a good money idea.
Great.
Well, that's
She's
what
just
we'll
like-
use all of our Patreon money for this week.
Yeah.
This post is for Facebook. This one is for Instagram. We don't use Twitter anymore. It's not a good look for the company. Like,
So, if you had to rate it out of 10, where do you feel like this lies now for you?
You know, I'm mixed on it. I think for the craft of movie making, the craft of storytelling, I still rate it quite high. I think the script is like an 8. But for sort of like, and as a time capsule, I think it's a really great time capsule for like what was important to American culture at this time. So I rated it quite high for its merits and for its faults.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I still had an absolutely amazing time watching this film. Even the things that don't hold up were still interesting in the way they didn't hold up. It was, thought-provoking, not necessarily in a great way, but like the way it made me think like, okay, so this has changed, but also disappointingly, this attitude hasn't changed. And it was like, okay, there's a lot. For a film that's essentially supposed to be about fashion, it's about so much. And it's hard to not sound like an arsehole talking about it in that sort of at that level. But I can see it's such an efficient, tight story, but it manages to really cover so much that it's entertaining and it holds up to it's not too long, which is always nice because that's that if it was made these days, it would be a 3-part movie with 2 hours a set and
a mini series.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Devil Wears Prada. The Devil Wears Gucci. The Devil Wears franchise. Yes.
Yes. The Devil Wears universe.
DWU.
Yeah, that's right.
In my head, I've been shortening this to DWP. Which is the Department for Work and Pensions,
yes.
Which is somewhat less glamorous.
No, that's what
Miranda Priestly. Okay, she's moved to England.
That's where
Vogue is shut down, and she's at the job centre.
But imagine managing the DWP in the way that Miranda Priestly managing pension funds in the way that Miranda Priestly runs runway.
Yeah, I'd agree that 8. That's all. It's where I feel this movie is because it has to lose a couple of points for just the Emily Blunt's cheese diet and that side that ickiness and the smarmy kind of relationships that are foisted in because you cannot possibly have a movie with a woman as the main character and not have a romantic interest. It's just not allowed. But it's still, it's a great time. And I really enjoyed rewatching because it has been, I want to say at least 5, maybe 10 years. I think Jim had watched it at some point, so I'd seen bits of it. But I hadn't sat down to properly watch it. And I had a really good time. And I really enjoyed the whole, this side of New York that felt quite magical. And that first job, that first big girl job is a really exciting time in your life.
Well, you went and ruined it and said that's not what New York is like. Let us have that. Let us have that dream.
Working in a big office with a big elevator in it, and you can doormen and security
and
codes.
Other big offices.
We dream big. You can tell we're like flyers. Oh, can you imagine having an elevator in your office?
Oh man, the elevator in my first job I had. We did have we had a lift, but it was in a very old building, and it could just about fit 1.5 people. And homeless people used to come and wee in it.
Yeah,
nice.
So yeah, it was great, glamorous.
That happens at Vogue Runway. Oh man,
maybe now.
Actually, after the financial crisis, that's in one of the scenes in the financial crisis film where
they've had to fire security, and now they keep on having to like shoot people out.
Yeah, I think also eight cerulean jumpers.
Okay.
Which is a hideous colour. I just want to say, cerulean, one thing that has not aged particularly well.
Well, to talk about fashion at that time, teal was huge.
Teal is still huge.
Like,
okay, you can't tell.
That light cerulean teal color. I mean, it was in decor. It was in everything.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Also, I can't imagine looking at a color and knowing the exact because the difference between
you are colorblind. It's not gonna.
I am a little.
I was going to say, I'm a little bit if anyone's not going to get it, Mikey, no offense.
I'm also a graphic designer, so it's going well.
You're brave.
I just use very limited colors, but like the idea of looking at a color, a jumper, and being able to be like, that's this exact color name. Because they're vague anyway. Like those color names are kind of, unless you have a color detector, they're kind of.
Isn't it Pantene that does the color chart now? Like Pantone, even Pantene's the hair, and that's shampoo and conditioner.
Yeah. But I also like the idea that she didn't. It's not cerulean. She just said that out of you just say it confidently. Yeah. You can lie. You just have to lie confidently.
Yeah. So when someone says something taupe, and I'm like, sure.
Sure. Okay.
Absolutely. I agree. Definitely taupe.
To be fair, it would have been very different if she went, it's that shade of blue.
It wouldn't have, that particular shade of blue would be like bullshit. But the confidence she described cerulean with is...
It's not just blue, it's a light blue. Completely changed the scene. But yeah, it's such a good film. I haven't seen it I think I watched it 4 years ago, got obsessed with it for a little bit because it is such an interesting production of it and all that stuff. But yeah, it's about so much, this film, and it's definitely worth watching.
Nice to have a film we can sink our teeth into.
Yeah. Which we don't get a lot. We mainly watch films from the late 90s to the mid 2000s. There's a lot of fluff at that point because there was money to throw at films, so every film got made.
So, Dan, this was the first time you saw it, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, would it surprise anyone if I said I'd not seen this before? Yeah, I had not seen this one before. I mean, as I joked about earlier, I did genuinely, in my head, always mistake this and Bedazzled, which I think has Brendan Fraser in it, and I've also not seen that movie, so, either's fine.
Does it have Helen Mirren in it? Because that would be...
No, who is it? It's
I'm
got
not sure who it's in it.
beautiful woman in it. Why can't I think of her name?
Oh, you're saying Helen Mirren isn't a beautiful woman?
Oh, this is turning into a Helen Mirren
head now.
No, it's just another actress that I always get confused with someone else. It's Elizabeth Hurley, famous for Austin Powers.
Yeah. We need to talk about that at some point.
Yeah.
We have to.
Yeah, eventually. We'll get there. But yeah, so it was my first time watching it. I did quite enjoy it. It's probably not one that I would pick out to go, oh, I'm going to sit down and watch a movie.
Really? 30-year-old man not jumping at The Devil Wears Prada?
Yeah, 31-year-old now who has one outfit, which is jeans, a t-shirt and a hoodie, Not... the fashion and that was interesting. I did quite enjoy it. Like you say, the script is really tight and it is really good character development and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I did have a good time watching it. I'm glad it's one that I can tick off that how have I not seen that movie list now. So yeah, I think I'll rate it 7 Dalmatian skins out of 10.
She did have.
Because I have seen Cruella.
She did
very
have
similar
Cruella
vibes.
DeVille.
Yeah.
She did have. How has Meryl Streep never played Cruella DeVille?
No, but I mean, it was Glenn Close, so you know.
Yeah, Glenn Close. I mean, because how would you do it better than Glenn Close?
That's true. That is true.
Saying that I've not seen Cruella, the movie, which I assume isn't Glenn Close.
No, it's Emma Stone. It's good.
Oh yeah, of course it is. Sorry, but isn't there a Cruella, a DeVille equivalent that she works for?
Yeah.
Yes. Who is? I can't remember. I can't. There's so many.
How many years have we been doing this, and we have still never learned any names of anyone?
Yeah. The names. That's not part of who we are. That's not our identity as a podcast, is remembering things.
If you guys want to learn the names of things, look them up.
It's Emma Thompson in that one. Who is
the
also
one.
Yes,
yeah. She'd also be quite a good Miranda Priestley, I think.
Good. There's a lot of that.
Or is she too soft? Has she got kind eyes?
No, she can play me.
Okay.
I think she could play
She's very good,
yeah.
Cruella. There is a lot of actresses of that age group and that year time that are all sort of incredible. And at least my brain, it kind of interchanges them.
Yeah.
Not that they're at all similar, but I'm always like, they all play the same type.
Imagine the four
and they play
of them
it.
And it was, it's sort of, you had blonde and young, brunette and young, preferably with a fringe, and then old. And those were like the 3 women you have in film. So in my head, like I remember getting like Emily Blunt and Eva Green and Anne Hathaway all kind of confused in the various roles they had when I was, and I mean like very young.
Yeah, we don't do that anymore.
No.
No. Now I can tell everyone apart flawlessly without any problems at all.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for bringing this to our attention, and it was an absolute treat to have. I hope we've not. We've talked about this quite a while now.
Sorry, we've kept you for quite a while.
It's really interesting to. It's such fun to have someone on the podcast that's knows more about like New York and the area and everything like that, as well as rather than like our quite closeted British take.
Yeah.
New York sure looks cool from here.
I'm sure all of New York is lovely.
No, this has been such a thrill. I'm so honored. Your podcast is so fun, and you guys make it so easy to like fall back into film nostalgia, which is such a film is such a specific thing, and people love it. I love it. It's such a thrill to have the chat with you. Thank you.
Oh,
thanks so much for joining us.
That's so sweet. Thank you.
We'll add that
so
to our list of compliments.
Thank you so much.
And since I've complimented you, I do have a bone to pick.
Oh God!
No, cut it.
Yeah. What's that?
All of our internets have gone down. Sorry.
Turn off the on-air button.
Not so much a bone to pick, but it's a movie I want you to watch if you have not seen it. It's a documentary. It's called Howard, and it's on Disney Plus if you have that. It is a documentary about a man named Howard Ashman, who wrote all of the Disney Renaissance movies. Got these 2 writers, Howard Ashman and Alan Menken, and they wrote Hercules and Beauty and the Beast and The Little Mermaid and Aladdin. And I listened to you guys' episodes on definitely Hercules, and I was like, those movies are so steeped in American musical theater history. And I think if you saw this documentary, I think a lot more of the movies and the music in them would make more sense. Not that they didn't make sense to you, but the sort of
bits of them didn't make sense to us.
Absolutely.
I guess we just missed all of the culture stuff.
Yeah.
From it.
Those 2 writers are they're incredible writers, and they oversaw this blossom of the American musical theater tradition, and then they took it to Disney, and those are essentially American musicals. Those movies, and it's a really moving documentary, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I definitely want to watch it.
Yeah, definitely have to check that out. Actually, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I will watch it and then never listen to our podcast episodes on Hercules and the Little Mermaid out of horror for what I had said so judgmentally before.
Here's us like, isn't it funny that guy doesn't understand the fish and the lobster are talking to him?
Yeah, I think we might have glossed over bits of that. Bits of those movies went over our heads. Potentially.
Like everything. Everyone has nostalgia and approaches things from a different way. Like, as we've seen, some people think terrible movies are good, and that is fine sometimes.
Yes. It's also nice to have a guest bring a film that isn't dreadful.
Yes,
We've been quite good recently.
Yeah.
We've been on a roll, so it's good that that's not ended.
Yeah, talking about good films.
One of the movies that I pitched to you guys was a movie called Little Shop of Horrors, which is a cult classic movie that is a musical. Mm-hmm. And that is the very first musical written by Howard Ashman and Alan Menken.
Cool.
And they go on to write all of the Disney musicals. So if it ever comes into your world, I think you'll...
Yeah, definitely.
So maybe we should watch this documentary and maybe invite you back for Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, that sounds like a good
plan.
I'm not gonna talk to you about musical theatre again until I've seen the documentary. I'm very scared now of how uncultured I sound.
No. Listen, the American musical is the only piece of theater, America's only unique contribution to the global ancient art of theater is the American musical, So.
That's fascinating. Anyway. That in itself is quite fascinating.
With that incredibly insightful knowledge, I have been Dan.
I have been Michael.
I've been Helena.
I have been Molly, and I hope to continue to be.
we hope so too. Yeah. Where can people find you, Molly, online?
You can find me on TikTok at Strange Capers. I'm over there eating food
and discerning weird Britishisms.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
It's
I'm sending off my passport soon, and I'm a bit nervous about it. And I remember, you mentioned that.
I haven't seen a video I made. I had to renew my passport, and I found myself without a passport for a month in a country I'm not a citizen of. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
This game.
Yeah, well, you can find this podcast on social media, including TikTok at Hilton Pod. That's at HILTM Pod. We do sometimes post little clips on TikTok. We'll try and do that more. It might help.
You're inspired.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can join our Discord as well if you want to come and chat to us. Let us know what you thought about The Devil Wears Prada. Can you tell the difference between the two belts? All that sort of thing.
Can you tell the difference between Helen Mirren and Meryl Streep?
These are the same. Oh, don't worry. Just Randy Creasy going on a speech.
I know how I'm advertising this episode now. I'm going to edit that picture to be those two. We also have a Patreon where you can support the show. Helps us keep running and be able to watch the movies and everything like that. What special thing are we doing for the Patreon this week?
So this is going to take a lot. This might be one of our more expensive Patreon devotions. We are going to build a fashion magazine.
Oh, okay.
As a company.
Nice.
That is bold in 2024.
It's going to be a challenge because that's just the start. From that point, we're going to build up until one of us shows the credentials of being a Miranda Priestley and being able to go look after that job. And then we're going to hire a load of assistants until we find one that needs that push into the world of industry. We're going to find an Andy. That's what we're going to do. It's going to take a lot of time. So if you're investing long term into the
getting on the ground floor.
Getting on the ground floor. You're not, to be clear, not investing in the fashion magazine that we are three people that do not know anything about fashion making.
Excuse you.
You're investing.
Okay, no one rushed to my defense there. That's absolutely fine.
You're investing in the concept of us hiring an Andy at some point in the future.
Eventually.
And breaking her.
And emotionally breaking her. One of us is going to have to sit in a living room whilst we get divorced with no makeup on. Now, for two of us, that's very easy. It's very unnoticeable.
As I'm the only one who wears makeup and is married, I'm starting to feel quite concerned.
It doesn't have to be you. It just means that if
okay,
good. Happen, me and Dan have to get married, not to each other. Although that would save time.
Yeah, that might be what's the if we really put a smart goal on this and get the time frame set, you guys might have to get hitched.
Yeah.
In which case, the Patreon money will have to go to a wedding.
Yes.
Oh, it's going to take so much. So if you want to give us some Patreon money,
would like to give us like
now is the
£5
time
a
to
month.
do it. Now is the time to do it.
We'll get there.
Oh God, end the podcast.
I know.
Are they screaming?
Can you hear the cat?
Very. Oh, was it a cat?
It's the cat.
Sorry, I assumed it was the child.
Is it? I'm happy that. Can you hear it? Like, should I? Let me go move her. Should I go move her into a different room?
It absolutely doesn't matter. Yeah.
Okay, she's outside the room. She's just mad.
It's okay.
She's a cat. Remember when Jess took down the shelf while we were recording?
Yeah, I have a lot of Lego, and my cat decided that in the middle of a recording, the best place to be would be on top of that shelf. And then you just hear a lot of smashing.
There's too many heartbeats in this house that I'm in charge of. There's just too many.
Yeah.
Very sweet of you. Yes, you're in charge of the cat. But it's not the other way around.
I was going to say it's a really nice way of putting it, but
no, Helena, you're correct.